We are honored to have lead these discussions licensed attorney and professional fiduciary Darby Jones, a member of the Florida and Maryland Bar. Darby serves on the executive council of the Real Property Probate Trust Law section of the Florida Bar and is a registered professional guardian. Darby is also the founder and executive director of the Professional Fiduciary Council of Florida. AARP surveys reveal that aging in place is a top priority for many of us as we grow older. Selecting a community and a home that supports this goal requires careful consideration of specific criteria. Darby, could you share some of the housing options available and offer guidance on how to determine which choice might be best meet our needs?
Well, I'm certainly going to try. And thank you all. I see a lot of familiar faces. It's so neat to see people that have been repeat viewers. Thank you so much for that. And hello to anyone new out there. I can speak for Michelle and everyone on the team that we are so thrilled to be a part of your 2025 and our collective aging journey. All of us are aging together. None of us have done this before, and it happens everywhere. I don't care what time zone you're in. So we're all going to learn together and hopefully bring fun and engaging and helpful topics and information to you on a monthly basis. So please, as Michelle mentioned, if you have any ideas for upcoming episodes, send us an email, get in contact. We've got agingacademy.com, or you can reach out to me directly, of course, or Michelle or Chandra, and we will be happy to address any of your concerns or topics in the future. I want to take a minute to also thank Michelle. We wouldn't be here today if it weren't for Michelle, and I am so proud of her, and AARP is lucky to have her. She's been one of the most delightful people I've ever worked with in my career. So I'm going to miss you, Michelle, and thank you so much. And I do have your home phone number, so you can't go far. And again, I'm here on behalf of the Professional Fiduciary Council of Florida. I'm the president and founding board member, and the council is in existence for the sole purpose of providing a resource for individuals like yourself or attorneys who are looking for people who can serve in fiduciary capacities. So with that said, let's get started. I also want to mention that some of the topics we're going to talk about today kind of bleed into some of the old episodes that we've had. So feel free to go on the website and look at some of the older episodes that will cover topics in a little bit more detail. And I'll try to reference them as we go through, just so it's fresh in your mind and you can make a little note to do that. Today, we are going to talk about livable communities. Now, what is that exactly? When you hear the word or the description livable communities, what does that mean to you? By the end of our day today, or by the end of our hour, I'm hoping that you're going to walk away with a really strong and clear idea of what a livable community means to you. And I want you to know what that is and know that what your options are and how to find answers or to find more information about what might be the best fit for you. And then that's going to help you go forward and have confidence in preparing for your aging future and your housing options going forward. So that's our goal for today. So let's start with it. What does livable communities mean to you? Later in the program today, we are blessed to have a wonderful guest speaker from the AARP. She is an ambassador for livable communities. And after we have discussed it a little bit, she's going to be coming in. Her name is Kathy, and she's got a busy day today, but we're going to take advantage of having her on board. So, in my experience as a professional fiduciary, which I have been doing for several decades now, and what that is that I have served as a power of attorney, healthcare surrogate, trustee, agent under power of attorney, personal representative, professional guardian, and a variety of fiduciary capacities. And I can't even begin to count the number of times when I have met with clients who have entrusted me to be their fiduciary, and they will come and they will meet with me, and they will very clearly say, Darby, whatever you do, don't put me in one of those places. Now, again, who knows what one of those places means to them? I think we can all kind of envision what that might mean. But what I want to help all of you here today with is to not be afraid of what your housing situation is going to be, because you are going to be in control of that, and you're going to be armed with lots of good information and lots of very viable options. Home is where you are. Home is who you are. So when we talk about aging in place, which is another very common description that we hear a lot nowadays, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to age in the house that you're in at this moment. You can age in place in a variety of ways. You can age in place in a downsizing situation. You can age in place in a 55 plus community. You can age in place in a facility. It can be in a lot of places. The aging in place is really, I think, just a testament to the fact that you want to age in a situation and in circumstances that you're comfortable with, where you feel safe, where you feel like you're not alone. The other goal I want to reach today is not only, number one, to help you understand that you have lots and lots of options, but also to prepare now, to be thinking about it now. And today, I hope I'm going to get all your creative juices going, thinking about where you want to be as you age. Because so often it's made in a crisis situation, which is not the ideal time to be deciding where to go, or where to put mom, or where to put dad, or my brother, or my loved one who just had a stroke or broke a hip or had a heart attack. And now we've got to find a place for mom or dad or my spouse to go. That's the worst time to be thinking about your housing options or your residential situation as we all age. Don't do it when a crisis happens, because so often the knee-jerk reaction is, oh, well, mom fell, she broke her hip, so now she's in rehab. We're going to have to find a place for her in assisted living or in a community of some kind. And that is not, by a long shot, that is not your only option. But often if it's a crisis situation, it feels like that's your only option. So today, you're going to understand that that's not the only decision that you have to make when that time comes. Another thing I want everybody here today to do is think about your own personal history, your own personal family health history. What happened with your parents? How did they age? What was their physicality? What were their choices? How did they manage? Perhaps many of you in the audience today are actually caring for your parents. So you're caregivers to those parents. Were they caregivers to their parents? Because their history is going to dictate a lot of where you're going and what your future might bring to you. So as you're gathering all this information and hearing all these options that we're going to talk about today, you have to filter it with your personal history and your personal desires and personality. So bear that in mind and think about, and that goes for when you're looking at long-term care insurance too, by the way, is your family history is a real parameter on how to select the right policy if you need one. That's another opportunity for a prior episode, by the way, when we talk about financial products that you want to be aware of as we age. Okay, so the first lesson today is you have options. So what are some of those options? Well, first, you can make home modifications right in the home you're in right now. Is it a home that can be modified in such a way that you can age safely? Is it one level? Um, are you familiar with contractors who specialize in modifying homes for aging? And there are contractors out there that do specialize in that work. Some physical therapists are actually trained to come and do an assessment in your home to see what might be the best things to do, whether it's lighting or grab bars or widening doorways, making the bathroom more accessible, etc. There's lots and lots of wonderful tools now where homes can be modified in such a way that they can be made livable. Don't forget care managers. Care managers are individuals who we used to call them geriatric care managers. And again, I've talked about care managers probably in every episode. I use them regularly. You can find them on a website called Aging Life Care Association. And I hope that we put that in the resources. I think we have it in every one of our episodes, but it's Aging Life Care Association. And you can go there and put in your zip code. And you can go within 25 miles, within 50 miles, et cetera, to find someone. And these people are very familiar with the process of aging and helping and resources and ideas for perhaps your goal of modifying your home. Technology, my goodness, how technology has changed. We could talk for days about all of that, but there is so much out there now that can help a person stay in their home. We have telemed, of course. We have the life alert systems that have gotten very sophisticated, the motion detectors. We have cameras. We have med boxes that have actual verbal reminders or automatic locks and unlocks. There are apps now where you can check in on an app to let your loved ones know that you're, hey, I'm alive today. Are you alive? And you can check in with people to just make sure that everyone knows you're okay and they know you're okay. So there's all kind, and some of these are brand new. And probably as we're speaking, there are new ones being developed. So keep in mind, there's a lot of those things out there that you may not be aware of, but people like these contractors and care managers and physical therapists, they're in that business. So they're going to know of some of these new products and new technology that could really be of help. Okay, so that's your home modification. What about downsizing? That's another way to age in place. You're just going to pick a home that's more appropriate. Maybe it's in a less rural or isolated geographic area, or maybe it's now going to a one level. Maybe it's in a 55 plus community. You don't have to take care of the yard. Maybe it's moving closer to your family. So you've got to look for a home or a unit or a condo or a villa that is attuned again to your personal goals and ideas and what you personally enjoy and the environment that you want to live in. Okay, so now we have co-housing. There's a lot going on in the world of co-housing. And if you, I'm sure everybody here obviously knows how to work a computer or you wouldn't be here on this episode, but you can go down quite the rabbit hole looking at all the variety of co-housing arrangements out there. You need to be very careful, okay? Just for what it's worth, to pick one example, let's say a group of friends get together, they buy a very large home, everybody has a bedroom, they share the kitchen, maybe they have one live-in maid or assistant or caregiver. But what happens when that person dies? What happens to their interest in that home? What happens if it's a couple and they get divorced? So there are a lot of little issues that could arise that could make an arrangement like that fall apart pretty fast. So before you move in, not that it's not a great idea, and Golden Girls, Karen, that's exactly right. But you want to make sure you have advice and get whatever agreement or whatever lease or whatever arrangement or ownership or equity in writing, and that you understand it, and that everybody has their own protection, an easy way out in case you want to move or it doesn't turn out for you. So you're not obligated and you're not hurting your heirs and you're not forced into a situation that you may otherwise decide is not right for you. Now, with all that said, I do think it's a great option. And there are lots of websites, lots of Facebook groups that are organically growing around this idea. A more formalized kind of idea like that is now what I have discovered is called Find a Village, called Village to Village Network. The web address is V as in Victor, T as in Tom, V as in Victor, network.org. And I'm going to read the description from their website. These are neighbors caring for neighbors. Villages are community-based, nonprofit, grassroots organizations formed through a cadre of caring neighbors who want to change the paradigm of aging. Now, I did some research on village to village network.org, and there are hundreds of them across the country. Many of them, and I'm in Maryland right now, there are several in Maryland, many in the DC area and Virginia and West Virginia area, and they're all operated differently. They're all grown organically. There is a national headquarters that will help with some of the bylaws and some of how to get it started. It's run by volunteers, and the whole purpose is to support people to stay at home. So, for example, you need a ride to the doctor, there's going to be a volunteer that can take you. You need groceries being bought and purchased and delivered, there's someone that can help you. So again, all of them are differently organized and differently run, but that's a fantastic way to maintain a community and to sort of connect people that are in need without having to be uprooted or moving. There's also a group called generations.org, and they create a magazine called Generations Journal. I recommend that as well. And there's a co-housing website called co-housing, all one word, cohousing.org. So again, we've got lots of rabbit holes to go down to find options about housing alternatives. There are Facebook groups, gosh. The AARP Ethels group is fantastic. If you haven't discovered that or run across that on Facebook, please do. There are senior housing options Facebook pages. And then let's move on to tiny home communities. Tiny homes were all the rage. Gosh, what was that? About 10 or 15 years ago, that was the new thing, tiny homes. And some of them can be great. And if there is a community of tiny homes, that's even better. But the challenge sometimes with tiny homes is that the zoning or the community or the municipality doesn't really allow the tiny homes, especially on an individual lot. You also have to remember your size. You know, if you, I know I went down a tiny home rabbit hole for a while myself, but it became a little bit apparent to me that not only is it difficult to find a place to put one, but then the size of them is challenging. What if you wanted to have your kids over for Christmas or your grandkids over for Thanksgiving? And what happens from the accessibility standpoint? Many of the beds are up a set of stairs and et cetera. So while they're very charming and look like a great option, be very careful that they'll be there for the long term for you from an maintenance and enough room and an accessibility standpoint. Okay, and you have your over 55 communities. Many of those are hugely successful and can be a great opportunity and option. The Villages, many of you probably heard of that in Florida, one of the most successful 55 older communities. Very vibrant, very active, very social. You know, they all have their golf carts. It's very, a lot of volunteer networks. Prior to the Villages, there was a place called Sun City. I think it's in Arizona and Florida, also very established. A lot of volunteer networks for even emergency services and checking on families, taking people to the doctor, et cetera. So those over 55 communities can be a great location as well. And then if we move into more of an institutional kind of setting, you've got what they call CCRCs, or continuing care retirement communities. And those communities, one of the biggest advantages there is they start with independent living, and then they're there to provide assisted living, and then also any rehab, and then also memory care if that's ever necessary. Now, I have some concerns about that kind of a large campus, and it can be very expensive. It's a great concept, but sometimes I worry about whether making a commitment to a community like that is wise, because you may decide you don't like it. So if you can, or if that's of interest to you, I personally would recommend that you try to rent rather than buy in. And many of them will allow that option. They don't prefer that, but many of them will allow you to rent rather than actually make that huge monetary contribution and buy in. My other word of caution is there is a lot of fine print in CCRCs, continuing care retirement communities, a lot of fine print. So do not sign one of those without having an attorney review it, an attorney familiar with those kind of agreements. Because I have had experiences with these communities having financial difficulties and not being able to live up to the commitment that they originally had advertised, and sell off some of their services like the memory care or the rehab. And so when the time comes, it's no longer part of that community. You're going to have to find a different location anyway. I've also had difficulties with people who have bought into these communities and have passed away, and the benefit that it inures to their estate is non-existent, because that fine print at the very last page says that that only is if they make a profit. And so very often some of these are operated as a nonprofit, and so there is no profit. So therefore, the benefit that was supposed to come to your heirs really never materializes. So I'm just bringing out a couple of examples, certainly not saying that all of them are this way, of course. And some of them are fabulous. And the idea of not having to move to a different community is very pleasant. It is difficult the older you get to move from facility to facility. So, but just go in with your eyes open and be aware that it can be somewhat expensive. I think we're also going to talk about accessory units in the backyard, the ones where you got the she sheds, or for the mother-in-law out in the backyard. I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later as well with our guest. But again, just be careful with those as well. Obviously, not only from a zoning perspective, but again, from an estate planning perspective. You know, what if your daughter and her husband decide they want to build one of these for you in their backyard, which is fabulous, and it sounds great, but then what happens if they get a divorce? What happens if one of them passes? What happens if they decide they need to move? So there are a lot of, again, considerations that you want to think about before you go headfirst into that decision as well. So the second lesson I want to emphasize, which I've mentioned previously, is don't make any of these decisions in a crisis situation. You can see from all the options we've just covered that a lot of those options are going to take a lot of research and a lot of thought. Again, thought coming from your heart, from what you envision yourself. I know that I've mentioned this before, but I can remember sharing with you. I want to ask you all to think back when you were a child and someone came up to you and said, "So, what do you want to be when you grow up?" Now, I don't know about you guys, but I had no idea. No clue what I wanted to be. Probably still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So think about that. what do you want to be when you grow older? Who do you want to be? How do you want to live when you grow older? And it's hard to know. Just like when we were a kid, it's hard to know what you want to be when you grow up because you're not there. So for us, we're not there yet, but it's time to think about it. What would your 90-year-old self tell you today to do differently? Think about you as a 90-year-old. What would that person be telling you today to do to prepare for that time of life? So now, with all your creative juices flowing, I've got a couple of poll questions for you. And I'm hoping Chandra is able to pull those up. And I want you to take your time and I want you to answer these questions. And then when we get the results, we're going to pull in our wonderful guest speaker and just have some lively conversations about what some of your fears are, maybe some of the questions you've had in the chat, and we'll talk about them. So here's the first question. What are your biggest fears about your housing as you age? So kind of low fear, intermediate fear, and high fear. Take your time and answer those. And there's a second question. So when you finish those, scroll down and you'll see the second question, okay? I'm going to try to see some of this chat here while you all are doing that. And I can't see the answers and I can't see if it's happening or not, but Chandra, can you let me know if we've gotten some answers?
We do. Everybody looks like is about halfway done with the first question. Second question, some folks are starting to move to that one. So the second question was, what comes to mind when you hear livable community? So I'll leave that up. And if you're done, I think you can exit out.
Okay, so I'm going to exit out and then I'll see the result. How do we see the results?
Well, I'll see the results as soon as I'm going to give everybody just a couple more seconds.
Okay.
And because everybody's we've got about 50% answered. So I just want to give everybody just one more second. And then I can end that and share the results. Got some good feedback here. And they're kind of all over the place too. Oh my.
Well, it can be all over the place. This is a very personal journey. And that's what I want people to realize.
Natalie, you want to scroll down for the second question. And Robin says it's a cognitive test to answer quickly. See, you guys didn't know that was happening today.
Yeah, that's right. Who's the president? What year is it? We're going to do a little mini mental here.
All right. Don't stress if you haven't answered. I'm going to go ahead and end it now and share the polls, share the results so we can start talking about it.
Okay.
All right. So the first question, can you see the results, Darby?
Yep. In the first question, I love that answer. The biggest fear is really staying in your home safely. And that is definitely, and Kathy's going to probably reinforce that in some of the statistical data that the AARP has gathered and that she has in her profession as well.
So Darby, the ones with orange, those are going to be the highest fears. The one with more blue are going to be your lowest fears.
Oh, okay. Well, I have it opposite then. Maintain independence and privacy. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, that one's going to be a higher fear. That looks to be probably the highest fear is
Right.
maintaining independence, privacy, and dignity seems to top the charts in terms
Yes.
of the biggest fear.
And Chandra, can you write that down for me? I think that's a very important answer right there. Maintaining independence, privacy, and dignity. Now, the second one, Michelle, but see, that's 95%, and the number one is 98%. If you look at the percentage over to the right.
Mhm.
So why wouldn't that one be the highest one? But it's the smallest orange.
Because you also take into consideration there was a middle option, intermediate fear. So if you take into account both the high and intermediate, it does put D also at the top of the chart. No one is aware of your situation in the case of an emergency.
Okay, Chandra, I think that one and that two are absolutely very important to me. That's great. And then that social isolation is not top of the list, right?
No, but it's still pretty close. It's got 91%.
It is. Okay, so let's go to the next one. What comes to mind when you hear livable community? So Michelle, help me out. What's the most important one? Answer.
Let's see. So that's going to be more of the light blue. So the bigger light blue. So we're not going by percentage because the percentage is how many people actually answered the question. So it looks like the largest light blue is going to be a bit of a tie between C and F. C is access to information and resources, and F is accessible to transportation options.
Interesting. Okay. That is very interesting. And again, probably not, oh, I see the colors now. I'm finally getting it. Okay, so social isolation, surprisingly, not the highest score.
And then, we've also got some pretty high ones where it's got definitely and maybe between G and H. So access to parks and public spaces and respect and social inclusion.
Okay, awesome. Okay, that's very interesting. I wonder if we can capture these answers. I hope we can. And this is a great stepping off place.
I captured them. Don't worry.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chandra. And so this is a great jumping off place for us to introduce our special guest today. Kathy Black is a professor of aging studies at the University of South Florida. And she is an AARP Florida Livable Communities Ambassador. So she has a very good understanding and perspective about some of the national statistics and research and all the wonderful programs that the AARP has been deploying across the country with regard to livable communities and how to rank them and what to look for. So Kathy, without any further ado, let me introduce you and let you talk a little bit about yourself and what your reactions are to all that we've covered so far.
Well, it was great to hear all of the information you shared, Darby. And, again, I'd like to, I was also a geriatric case manager and a nurse for decades myself, but we're not going to go all of those places. Let's talk about livable communities. And a livable community is one that keeps people safe and healthy and allows people really to thrive and to fully participate in social, civic, and economic life. And I'll give you a very big overview. In the 2005 or 6 or so, the World Health Organization, in work they did with over 20 countries and thousands of people, identified that our environments really affect how we live. And there's a lot of evidence about that today. It's not just genetics and lifestyle, but really our environments. We've been talking so much about housing, but the truth is, we step our feet outside the door. It's not just about our housing, and which helps us live fully. I was not surprised to hear about transportation, but what we know from the WHO work is the development of this age-friendly community network, which is in over 50 countries. And the United States has almost 1,000 age-friendly communities. Some of the listeners here today may be residing in an age-friendly community. And 12 of our states are also age-friendly, which really represents a commitment by government and other sectors of society to improve the community life in which we live and age. And it includes broadly the built environment, housing, transportation, outdoor spaces, as well as the social environment, access to activities, volunteering, employment, to be treated with respect and included, and also some service aspects such as healthcare, community supports, and I also saw communication information, which is very important, I guess, particularly in a period of massive information overload, in addition to really people needing different formats to get information. There will be a day that we live in the Jetson age and everything will be digital. We're not fully there yet, but we are very much well on the way. But then again, trusted sources of information, and gee, I wish I had knew about that. That whatever it was, let's say it was a lecture or something people didn't know, or an activity they wanted to participate, they didn't know about it. Let me just mention a little bit about the transportation one, since we talked a lot about the housing one, and you did identify a lot of very important options, Darby. People do want accessible homes. Our homes weren't built, for us to age in our lives. There are things you can do. Sometimes they're very expensive, but there's a lot of low cost things that can be done. And the Home Fit Guide will really, it is just superb. Please check that out. You will absolutely learn things about your own life. And Darby, just to expand on something you said, people do have a very difficult time envisioning their future selves. And, old age is always 10 years older than we are. And some of us who have been caregivers may be a little bit more aware, but it's not just about who you want to be, but it's also about the life you plan on living. Who do you plan to connect with? How do you plan on getting around? We heard people talk about transportation, or they identify transportation. We outlive our safe driving abilities by 7 to 10 years. And we live in a very auto-dependent world. And as you know, it's not not if this happens to me, but when. And so people are very concerned about being cooped up, and you can have a great home situation and really manage well, but if you can't get to where you need to go or get out, we know that people experience a lot of issues when they're just cooped up in the house, they become very vulnerable. There's all sorts of things that can start happening. So we spend about 90% of our times in a 5-mile radius around where we live. So our community environments really matter. And so an age-friendly community is focused on all of those aspects of those community features, so that people can, again, fully participate in social, civic, and economic life and really thrive and look forward to every day, rather than dread, oh my goodness, I can't manage and I need something and I'm alone. And so this movement is one that really engaging the lay public as well as key sectors of society. And so it's something that makes me very happy every day, because the world is finally making the world fit for the 100-year plus lifespan, so that people of all ages, life stages, and abilities can participate in life.
So Kathy mentioned some of the specific things, if you could, about I thought it was very interesting how the Livable Communities actually looks at getting grants for communities to do things like the Wheels on Wheels. I thought that was a really cool program.
Well, one of the grants that ARP offers is called a Challenge Grant, and the cycle's open right now. It's closing in early March, and these are dedicated sums of money, and people really have to have shovel-ready projects. Really, these short turnaround of innovative options that really make a community better. we've seen so many wonderful things. We've seen everything from intergenerational gardening, again, bringing people of all ages together in sustainable ways so they can all contribute to, you know, a little harvest and gardening. One of the ones that I loved here in Florida was this, I'm blanking on what they called it, community tables of connection. And basically these were in parks. They were solar based tables where people could just sit down and, you know, again, promoting that communication with each other. We are increasingly isolated, so anything that brings us together is a good thing. But the unique thing about this particular table of connection, because it was solar powered, you could go out, you could get your phone charged while you were there. That's not just good for anybody, but it's especially good in times of a disaster, so that, you know, you've got, you know, a free energy source to keep that phone powered, which is a very important issue in the face of disasters, which, you know, much of the nation has unfortunately experienced some of those. But there's so many innovative things, you know, murals and, you know, placemaking things for communities, again, getting us connected with each other and feeling a sense of pride where we live, promoting intergenerational relations, people supporting each other. So I do encourage people to take a peek at those community grants and see some of the innovative ideas that have been happening all over the country. It will blow you away.
So that study, you were talking about the guide a minute ago. Can you share a little bit more in that guide that people might want to?
Well, the thing about the Home Fit Guide is it walks you through, as Michelle put into the chat, it walks you through every room, and it identifies, you know, again, maybe you don't need a new stove today, but should you need a new stove, the guide will direct you to make sure that you don't have, you know, the what do you call it? The board that you turn things on so that you're reaching across the stove. You know, it's letting you know on all of these things that you need in the home, that you have in the home, that might make it easier for you. You know, again, as overtures when you go out to buy a stove, you know, had you known to put the, you know, the knobs to turn things on right there in front, so you're not reaching over. People sometimes wouldn't even think about that, and right away that's going to eliminate, you know, many of the options out there, and it will just be better for you to age with. Same thing on washing machines and refrigerators, and literally every major appliance. But everything from you know, having good illumination in the house. People do fall at home, and knowing, having lighter paint color. Again, you're going to paint, go with something that you know is going to help your own aging down the road. Having your address clearly listed in case of emergency, so that people are putting their 3333 Weather Lane or wherever you are. Just so many hints and suggestions, from throw rugs in the house to bathroom safety, to having to putting the studs in the wall, so if you do add a grab bar, it's there for you. To use a lever instead of a doorknob, because a lever is much easier for an arthritic wrist, but it's also good for everybody. And so many more sustainable and simple ideas that have been compiled together, really to help people do very well in their home. Because Darby, you spent a lot of very important time talking about how important our homes are to us, and the communities in which we live, and the homes in which we live. And in some cases, I'm in Florida now for 25 years, and I do have a single floor home, which is, really good for aging. But of course, I'm from a 2-story home. We all know what that's like. And of course, many of us were in 2-story homes where there's only a bathroom on the 2nd floor. And so how do you manage, if those stairs become very difficult, or you're temporarily laid up, or you've broken a hip, or et cetera. And so there's a whole bunch of suggestions. The Home Fit Guide will also guide you in the kitchen, You do want at least one seat height counter. God forbid you have the stroke and you end up in a wheelchair. You do want to be able to manage, of course, wider doors and hallways are all important features as well. So, so all of these ideas are, all of these great points are in the Home Fit Guide. And I'm telling you, this is one keeper. So check out the website, get a hard copy of it if you'd like to order that, and you will get so much. You'll share it with so many people, and they will benefit from this information as well.
Great, great. Now, having been a professor of aging, what were some of the most interesting and helpful, like specific courses that you researched and taught that our audience might be interested in?
Well, I mean, I will just tell you, I'm a professor emeritus. I just stepped down from the university, still working. And I did see that civic engagement employment was important to people as well. Many of us are continuing to work today into traditionally retirement years, and it is important that our work environments are adapted to us. I would just say to you that my work has always been focused on what matters most to people and very applied. It's not just theoretical. Of course, there's a lot to be gained from basic research and knowledge, but it's always about how it could be most useful to people. And the age-friendly community movement, the livable communities movement, is the most integrated, comprehensive way of looking at this, that's bringing so many professions and disciplines together, so that all talent on making our homes and roads safer, all of these things can be brought together to really to help an aging society. I think doing the work at the level of helping the largest number of people is really been the most exciting thing. We want to improve these environments for everyone at all price points, of all stages and abilities. And we enter into these aging years, as you said over and over again, Darby, and you're right. We are a unique combination of genetic predispositions, personal health issues, but circumstances too, circumstances that can hit us on a dime. A spouse dies, a change of a body function change, losing the ability to and people value things differently. There's some people that don't want to live because they can't play golf every day, or and some people, but we all learn to adapt to some of these changes. That's really the best thing we can do, is really adapt to change with age.
I think it's interesting. One of the answers on the survey, if I got it right and remembered it right, was about dignity and privacy.
Well, I actually did a very huge study on dignity and independence, my colleague and I, and really what we found, there's many meanings of these terms to people, but they are as what you would think on the face of them, that people remain in control of their lives and are treated fully with respect in all of their experiences, interactions in and out of the community, with healthcare and with businesses and on the roadways. And people really want to maintain their lives. They want to have amenities that support them living independently. They want to be treated fully with respect, as they should be. And they want to continue living in the homes where they are, or in the communities if the home no longer continuing to work for them. We like to talk about it as aging in the right place. And for some people, having that 5-bedroom home, the kids have been out for a long time. Maybe it's time that you look at a different environment, if you can no longer manage and maintain that. And you opened up everybody to a few of those innovative options. The one thing I do want to add that you did mention that I don't think was mentioned, or maybe mentioned enough, there are a lot of guidance now on really how to do a better match in co-sharing of a home, because affordability remains an issue to all of us as we age, and people who are able to share their home will automatically have an economic benefit of another income or another source of revenue coming in, and maybe even some shared expenditures on heating and camaraderie in the kitchen, and all sorts of wonderful things can happen. The matches are happening. They can be wonderful. And with some planned reviews, you can choose the right person. So again, you don't just, does the person smoke? Are they late night? Do they listen to loud television? Do they have pets? So the issues are great, and there are many, and there's quite a few books out there, including guided checklists, so that because when the matches are great, they are just that. They're wonderful, as someone said, like a Golden Girl situation. They really do happen, and there's ways to help us better prepare for those successful matches.
Well, I know that we have covered a lot today, and Kathy, I know you've got a wealth of information and expertise, and I'm sure they can get a hold of you through the AARP Ambassador Program, through Livable Communities, if they have any further questions. And I appreciate everybody's, I had a little bit of a coughing thing going on there, so I apologize, but I do agree with Kathy that this is a personal journey for each and every one of you, and that isn't a cookie cutter decision about where you have to live, and that there's such a limited amount of choices. They're not. So do the work now before it's an emergency, and think about it now, so you have time to ponder it and research and talk to your family and loved ones. So I hope today was enlightening and invigorating and insightful. I enjoy these so much. I'm going to let Michelle talk us out for the last time. And next month, we have an episode about elder law and the basics of elder law and what it is and what it isn't. I think will be very helpful for people. As again, we go through this journey together. You're going to need, there are going to be legal moments out there, and you want to know what they are and who are the right people to talk to. So again, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Darby, and thank you, Kathy, our special guest, for joining us today. Age-friendly, livable communities is at the heart and soul of the work that we do across the association, across the country. There are hundreds of communities, counties, municipalities, and entire states that are designated as age-friendly communities, and every one of them is doing unique work in their community to support seniors, and we are so appreciative of that. And I saw some questions in the chat about how do I get involved, and so we're going to make sure that you have links to all of those resources that were mentioned today. And certainly if you have any questions, going to the Aging Academy website, which will be the first link resource that you see in the post-event email later today. That's going to take you to recordings of past sessions. The recording for this session, it's going to take a little bit of time. Chandra needs to be able to download it, pretty it up a little bit before she posts it. So give her a good 24 to 48 hours. But there will also be resources there, as well as contact information on how to reach Darby and Chandra as well. So yes, again, please do join us March 20th for the next Aging Academy, where we're going to dive into elder law, a very important subject matter. And I know tons of us have lots and lots of questions. Every time I sit through one of Darby's conversations about elder law, I always come out with more answers and more questions. So we do hope that you will join us. We appreciate you joining us today. The last thing I'm going to mention is in that post-event email, there's one other link in there that is not a resource, but is a survey. We do encourage you to fill out that survey because several reasons. One, it's what helps us drive the agenda going forward. So sharing with us what went well, what other topics would be of interest to you, in terms of preparing for your own care, the care of someone that you love, and being able to show that this is an important, valuable offering for AARP members and friends, and we want to continue doing that. So I do encourage you to take just a few minutes to complete that survey. Any last words from you, Darby?
No, but thank you. And again, I see a lot of people asking about where to see episodes. You can go to the agingacademy.com. Or you can go to YouTube, Aging Academy on YouTube, and all the former prior episodes are there as well. So good luck, and we'll see you soon.
Have a good one.